This is Deepak. How are you? Good morning. It is Thursday morning, and I'm presently in Orlando at the Lake Nona community, a little bit outside Orlando. And they are having what they call the Lake Nona Forum. And it's a gathering of many people, mostly scientists and also people in the healthcare field that are looking at how to create healthier communities. So before I go there, I thought I'd do my daily podcast here and answer the question that has been posed today by Krista. And her question is, if a unified theory is within consciousness, why then does it remain elusive? Maybe like a tree becomes a book. You can take the book from the tree, you can take the book from a tree, but you cannot take the tree from the book. Consciousness can exclude a unified theory, but a unified theory cannot exclude consciousness. Okay, so very poetic and good question. It is actually related to the questions asked in this book. You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters. By the way, the book is number 7 on the New York Times non-fiction list, so we are very happy about that, Menas and I. The book is number 7. It debuted at number 7 on the New York Times. So we're very happy about that. Thanks to your support as well. Okay, so, this question about why a unified theory remains elusive is related to the ultimate mystery expressed in this book, The Ultimate Mysteries. What came before the Big Bang? Why does the universe fit together so perfectly? Where did time come from? What is the universe made of? Is there design in the universe? Is the quantum world linked to everyday life? Do we live in a conscious universe? How did life first begin? Does the brain create the mind? These are some of the questions we are asking in the book, and then we are posing the answers at the end of the book with the chapters, The Power of Personal Reality, Where You Really Came From, Getting Comfortable with Qualia, How Cosmic Consciousness Behaves. Okay, so in general, when people ask about unified field theories, they're talking about Einstein's quest for an ultimate theory of everything. So right now, science accounts for 4, or tries to account for 4 forces in nature. And these are the strong interaction, the weak interaction, electromagnetism, and gravity. Now, the strong interaction is, or the strong force, is that force which holds the nucleus of an atom together. Okay, so the nucleus of the atom has neutrons and protons, and theoretically the protons should be repelling each other, so there's a force that holds them together. When you disrupt that force, you get an atomic explosion. So it's a very powerful force. The weak interaction is the force that's responsible for radioactive decay. And that force is connected to the strong force. And then the third force is electromagnetism, electricity and magnetism, which permeates the whole universe and is responsible. Right now for us, we're using that force to communicate with each other. So the strong force, the weak interaction, and electromagnetism are now considered to be unified in that we have mathematical equations and experimental proof that these forces are actually the same force in, you can say, different disguises. And there's a fourth force, which we all know is gravity. Gravity is thought to be the curvature of space-time, and gravity is is responsible for the Earth going on its own axis, for going around the sun, and for the movement of the moon, and of course holds an entire galaxy together. And why there's a problem in unifying these forces is scientists have not been able to unify quantum understanding with the understanding of gravity. The quantum world describes the micro world of electrons, protons, and subatomic particles, and therefore the quantum theories are capable of understanding these three forces: electromagnetism, strong and weak interactions. But quantum theories do not explain the universe at the macro level, at the big level, at the level of gravity. And so this remains elusive. The question that you ask is so important, because in the absence of a grand unified field theory, all the other questions that we pose in this book also become, in a sense, unanswerable. They're somehow connected to the understanding that forces of nature, which are independent of us, ultimately created everything, including Big Bang and a universe that's fine-tuned for mind and life. But actually, even if we had the answers to the grand unified field theory, some of the questions we pose in our book would remain unanswerable. And I think the problem is that we are assuming that these forces are independent of experience. And yet everything that we know about reality comes from a perceptual or cognitive experience or knowing. So we know that we exist, we know that the universe exists, we can experience it, and there is a subjective element of knowing that is related to that, which is consciousness, and yet all of science excludes consciousness in its theories when the theories themselves are constructed in consciousness. As I've said before many times, theories are conceived in consciousness, experiments are designed in consciousness, and observations are made in consciousness. So we are excluding the one constant of all constants, which is consciousness. All the constants of nature that people talk about, including the relationship between the gravitational force and the electromagnetic force, the size of the electron, the size of the proton, the charge in the electron, all these things are based on knowing and observation, but none of the theories ask the question, who is it that wants to know? Who's the observer? Who is the observer? Laura Renault says she loves the book. Thank you, Laura. So who is observing? Who is the observer? Who wants to know? And unless you answer that question, you can never get to a complete theory. But if you answer that question, that the observer is, in our case, a human observer, a particular species of consciousness, then what we observe are, in fact, qualities of our own self. We are observing qualia, qualities of our own being as a human consciousness. And so we've created a human universe by manipulating these forces and the understanding of natural phenomena, which are regularities of experience that we call natural laws. And so everything that we experience is a human construct, whether it's your body, your mind, the universe. These are constructs created as a result of self-interaction, which results in qualias, which are basically sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, that we objectify as the material universe, and then we go about measuring it, and we create technology, you never really ask who's the you that's doing it. And when you really get to who's the you, then there are two levels of that to you. There are two levels. One is your, what we can say, conditioned identity, which comes about through education, through the passing down of learned experience, through culture, through science, and so forth, that basically creates or objectifies a reality which is actually totally subjective. And beyond that, all of that is a more unified awareness from which are emerging all the different species of consciousness that are creating the own reality. A dolphin reality, a mosquito reality, a crocodile reality, a fish reality, a bat reality, and so on. So what we are experiencing, you and I, is a human universe. And then we start to ask questions. What's the universe made of? Well, the current answer is that it's made of nothing, because 96% of the universe are hypothetical entities, dark matter and dark energy. The remaining 4% is atomic, of which 99.99% is invisible interstellar dust. And the 0.01 that makes the 2 trillion galaxies and the 700 sextillion stars and the trillions of planets, which is made up of atoms, is, if you exclude the interstellar dust, is 0.01%, and that atomic universe is made of possibility waves. Where could they be? Well, they could only be in consciousness. Where else could they be? Possibilities only exist in consciousness. So the universe is made of nothing, and consciousness is also made of nothing. So my answer to this always is consciousness is the universe, and each species of consciousness, and each individual creates their personal reality, which is part of a collective reality, which is part of a transpersonal reality, which is part or an expression of cosmic consciousness. If we don't go this route, then we are stuck with questions. How did life begin? Are we alone in the universe? What makes us human, since 99% of our DNA is the same as a chimpanzee? How did chemicals organize themselves to create DNA? Why do we dream? Why is there stuff in the universe? Are there other universes? These are constructs based on a fundamental flaw, wrong questions, in that we think there is something else independent of the consciousness that perceives it. If there is a consciousness independent universe, then we will never know it. And so let's reverse the whole search for a unified field theory and ask ourselves, is consciousness all there is? Experiencing itself as different forms and phenomena. Consciousness interacting with itself as different forms and phenomena. The forms themselves are phenomena, and the phenomena themselves are the arising and subsiding of qualia, or qualities of consciousness within our own self. So is the universe conscious? We are conscious. You are a species of consciousness experiencing your human universe. That's all. That's all. And once we get there, then it actually satisfies every dilemma we have. Because suffering comes from the fragmented mind. Suffering comes from clinging on to impermanence. It comes from being afraid of impermanence. It comes from identifying with your ego, and it comes from the fear of death, when in fact consciousness, the fundamental reality, being outside of time and timeless, is not subject to birth and death. I cannot repeat this enough, don't mistake the map for the territory, because when you mistake for the map for the territory, then you are basically saying that the menu in my restaurant is the meal. The menu is not the meal. The map is not the territory. So once you totally understand the fundamental nature of being, and then how being spontaneously evolves into feeling, reflecting, speaking, and acting in the world, then you will not be um, not be confused by self-created problems. Okay? I remember Rumi's poem when he says, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open?" Reflect, ask yourself what you want, ask yourself what your purpose is in life, be grateful for existence, and then go with the flow. And you won't need unified field theories to solve conundrums based on the superstition of matter. No one has ever shown the existence of matter. So Claudia Luna asks, what do you want? I want people to know themselves in a way that I'm knowing myself. I want a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and happier and joyful world. I want us all to be free. Free to love, free to enjoy life, and free to evolve without imposing walls of prison that are totally self-imposed, and all the boundaries that exist that are also totally self-imposed. Okay, so this is it for today, and I'll be in touch with you as usual tomorrow. Take care and God bless.